Hey, Nerd Herds, Dynasty Nerds here, back again this week, and we're breaking down the AFC South and what we think of these players from a Dynasty aspect. You know, is Jonathan Taylor a buy or is Jonathan Taylor a sell?
Is Kareem Hunt making his way somewhere in the South?
There's a lot of running backs to talk about, a lot of really interesting situations in a division that normally doesn't have a lot of good fantasy assets, but there's some gems in there.
Who are the buys? Who are the sells? Let's find out.
Ready, set, hut.
Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Dotson, my fellow nerds, Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And Garret Price.
How's it going?
It's good. We're talking AFC South as we continue our division breakdowns. Look at these from a Dynasty fantasy football standpoint. Gives us a chance to talk about every single player in the league for the most part, which is pretty exciting. As the season inches closer, this weekend we'll have all NFL playing their preseason games, which we'll get, we'll actually get to see a lot of starters this week.
Right.
We'll start seeing some more signings as these games start to trickle through. As by the time the show comes out, Kareem Hunt could already be an Indianapolis Colt, which we're going to talk about that team as well today.
That escalated quickly. Right?
Yeah, he went to go to the Saints.
It sounded like it was a done deal with New Orleans.
Like Rossini,
we'll
said they were going to sign there.
We'll get into New Orleans and their money.
That's true.
Later.
That's true.
Doesn't surprise me that he didn't.
His agent's like, don't just go to Indianapolis.
Just go.
He didn't even work out.
Greener pastures.
They have more money.
He went there. He didn't work out, which is nuts. So it's going to be fun talking about them. On the Nerd Herd Show, we're going to talk about the NFC South. Next week, we're going to go to the West, then the North. Garret won't be here next week to talk about the West, but Matt and I will be. And we're doing the West, and then we're going to do our annual redraft show. We give our top 12 at each position, our favorite sleepers. We've been doing that at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Yeah.
Doing a live show for the troops there. It's going to be a good time. And then our bold predictions show.
Always my favorite. Always my favorite. Just pencil me in for 3 or 4 really
Sit
crappy,
on the throne of lies.
really crappy
Smell like
predictions.
beef and cheese.
And then we're watching NFL football for real.
Yeah.
And enjoy every second because we all know it. In a blink
Goes
of an
too
eye,
quick.
it is gone. I'm in those weird phase where, like, a lot of my teams in my 20 leagues, like, I've been consistently a contender, like going at a lot of these leagues as a contender, trading away draft picks, trading away draft picks, and like I'm at the end of that cycle. And like all these, like my teams,
The Last Dance.
It's
the Last Dance squad
for
right
a lot
now?
of the teams. It's the Last Dance. A lot of teams have a lot of Tyreek Hill, a lot of DeAndre Hopkins,
Devontae Adams.
Stephon Diggs, things on those. I have a lot of Devontae Adams shares. So for me, this is one of the. I said this is kind of a last dance for me in a lot of my leagues. I'm getting ready to enter that reload phase or rebuild phase, which I don't have a lot of. I don't. I've been a contender for almost 20 years.
Listen, I mean, I know you're saying, hey, this is going to be the last hurrah for a lot of these teams. But next year's a pretty good draft, man. I don't know. It might be one of those times where things start going south.
Yeah, look how things look at week 6, week 7.
But you know what?
better keep
The
an eye
draft
on that.
after that will be a good draft, and the draft after that will be a good draft,
Not
and then the
all
draft after that.
drafts are created
You
equal.
say that, but there's always
How many drafts have Marvin Harrison Jr.?
None. Only one, 24.
That's right.
But you just never know. I mean, Justin Jefferson, we weren't sitting here the year before talking about Justin Jefferson. We were talking about Jamar Chase, but we weren't talking about Justin Jefferson. We've been talking about Bijan for years, but you just never know. So
You don't. We didn't know Joe Burrow was coming.
and who knows? I still have more draft picks to trade, so you never know.
So you might go the other way.
Yeah, I told him in our Nerds Calculator League that we're doing a disrespect draft right now, and I said I was like, I think out of all 20 leagues, I got like a total of 324 draft picks.
I have yours in that league.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, that's not good for you. I was like, I don't care. I was like, I'm gonna get so many ships this year. You can call me Admiral Rich.
Admiral Rich.
So we'll see how that goes. I would like to have like a year where I win like over 5 dynasty
All of
championships. Yeah, I've won 4 in 1 year before because it's just hard with like
It
lots
is.
of second places. But I'd like to get over like this year. I feel like pretty good about some of these teams. But I was doing my annual process of going through my teams and really looking at it. And there's one team I saw. I was like, man, this team's got like a good core, but there's like no depth there. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I should blow this up now.
That's the one.
Get out ahead of it.
That's the one about week 6, Rich. You should think about blowing that one up, man.
Yep.
No, not our league. That's what you're thinking of?
No.
Because that
no.
league's a one win. That came in second place.
I don't know how you can think that you're going to win with my team coming, but that's fine. I mean, that's do it.
I got good people. So let's talk AFC South.
We'll see come week 6.
We'll talk AFC South. Like I said, we're going to talk NFC North on the Nerd Herd Show. If you want to join the Nerd Herd and get access to the Nerd Extra podcast that we do, and you want to get access to all the tools that we'll actually be showcasing. We haven't mentioned this yet. The Fantasy Football Expo
Heck yes.
is this weekend in Canton, Ohio. The Expo is this Sunday. If you head down there and check it out, there's going to be every analyst you could possibly think of, from ESPN, NBC to all your favorite Dynasty shows. My good friends Izzy and Hurley are coming from DTC. They're coming a day early, going to stay with me. They're going to make the drive up to Canton. We'll be down there all weekend and do an ask. So come down and say hello. I love meeting listeners of the show at the Expo every single year. There'll be some parties going around on Saturday too. So if you've got to drive in and stay for the weeknight, there's going to be tons of analysts out partying on Saturday. But it's at the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame this Sunday. So check it out, the FF Expo. This is our 4th year, and it's always a fantastic time. There's so much to learn.
And getting bigger, and it's amazing.
It gets bigger every single year. Big dogs there. And we're going to be showcasing our tools. We are sponsoring the main stage, actually, and we'll be showcasing all of our tools. If you want access to our tools, if you want access to the bonus podcast, all you got to do is join Nerd Herd. And there's never been an easier time in the existence of Dynasty Nerd to get that. All you have to do is go to Underdog, download the app, the Underdog Fantasy app, and deposit a minimum of $10 and use the promo code NERDS. Not only will they double your deposit up to $100, but we will also give you a free year of the Nerd Herd. If you're already a Nerd Herd member and you still want to support our sponsors, we're going to send you a free shirt. Sent a whole bunch out yesterday. The most comfortable shirts in the world. And if you're like, hey, Rich, I've been hearing you talk about Underdog for months now. Like, what is the deal with it? It's just best ball fantasy football. And if you don't know what that is, you literally just draft a team. Somebody wrote on our comments, I say literally too much, and I do.
Literally?
And you go on there and you draft a football team, and that's it. We enjoy the draft, and it sets your best lineup for you every single week. Against 3 people, 1 person, 10 people, or thousands of people by joining like Best Ball Mania or the Puppy Leagues. And have your opportunity to win up to $3 million for first place. $3 million.
We were all just literally talking about our teams before we started
That
this
is
show.
exactly what we were doing.
We were talking about our underdog teams and showing us some of our favorite ones that we think could possibly win there. Good luck to us. So if you want to join a best ball tournament, that's all you got to do. Go down there.
Very sincere.
Use the promo code NERDS. Deposit at least $10. You're going to get access to everything that we have, and you're going to play an awesome game. Underdog, you've seen them everywhere, and it's for a reason. Everybody loves to do it. Our favorite thing to do is draft, and that's what Underdog gets you to do. Yep. And the best part, it has more than NFL. I've never done anything. I've never done any baseball or NBA on there, but they do have NFL, MLB, baseball, so many other sports. But
it's a great way to crack into new fantasy avenues. You know what I mean?
So check them out, Underdog. Use the promo code NERDS. So let's talk about the AFC South, shall we?
Let's do it.
So let's kick it off with the Houston Texans. At quarterback, they have C.J. Stroud, Davis Mills, and Case Keenum. At running back, you have Damian Pierce, Devin Singletary, Mike Boone, Dare Ogunbowale. At wide receiver, Nico Collins, Robert Woods, John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson, Tank Dell, Noah Brown. At tight end, Dalton Schultz, Brevin Jordan, Tegan Quitoriano, and Eric Tomlinson.
Nailed it.
Yeah. So what do you guys feel about the Texans this year? A lot of fantasy football excitement there, right?
So this is one of those dud sort of teams that it's gonna be a couple of years till we know exactly what we have, and it all centers around the quarterback, right? I mean, they're bringing in C.J. Stroud. They got a lot of young pieces on the outside as well. I think Nico Collins is kind of getting some run here in camp, saying he's pretty much the clear cut guy, which at this point. He should be. I mean, he's been there the longest. I mean, Robert Woods is a veteran who can step right in and be a number 2, but he doesn't have the juice to be anything more than that. He's his days of taking over an offense and being kind of a number 1 for any team. Those are probably 3 or 4 years in the past. So we'll find out this year whether John Mechie is recovered and ready for the NFL. I mean, that's I think the exciting part of that is seeing CJ Stroud, a rookie like Tank Dell, and how does Dalton Schultz fit in, right? I mean, is he going to be a safety blanket for the quarterback? That's how I see it.
Dalton Schultz is one of my favorite, maybe my favorite piece for this season on the Houston Texans team. He's always been a guy that's taken opportunity. Now he's going to be going from the Dallas offense that utilized him a lot to basically what the San Francisco offense was that utilized George Kittle and made him a top tight end. Now, he doesn't have some of the amazing physical traits that George Kittle had, but the opportunity is going to be there. So whether it's on design plays or, like you mentioned, safety blanket, check down type of stuff, I think he's one of the few players that if you asked if there was a player that could crack into the top 12 at their position, obviously tight end's typically the easiest one to do that, but I think he's one of those guys that could do that.
Yeah, it's a young team. So from a dynasty aspect, there's a lot of upside here. Dalton Schultz is 26 years old, so he's not that old.
Right.
The old man rivers on this is going to be Bobby Trees, Robert Woods, who's a very savvy route runner, really good hands. He should be a nice safety net for the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud, but also some of these receivers coming up. Like you mentioned, John Mechie. This is essentially his rookie year. Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson. These are their rookie years. And then Nico Collins is going to have his first opportunity to really crack that starting lineup and be a week in, week out starter. And honestly, could be their number one option in the passing game. It's probably they're going to run the ball a ton, I'm sure, as well here with CJ Stroud being a rookie. And Dameon Pierce is somebody who we sat here on this podcast and from a dynasty aspect said this should be a sell, right? Coming in there, running backs have a short shelf life. The odds of Dameon Pierce being a long-term asset are slim. I still feel that way about Dameon Pierce. Nothing's changed. I mean, he had a solid rookie year. He got 250 touches, had 1,104 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he only played in those 13 games. So he was on pace for over 1,200 yards last year. Real bad offensive line there in Houston last year. Real bad. They did draft a center in the second round, so hopefully that can kind of beef them up just a little bit there.
And they got Laramie Tunsil out on the left side, right? I mean,
yeah,
so
good,
that's
they have a good tackle.
Their premier tackle.
And they bring in Devin Singletary as well. And Devin Singletary is just not somebody you just shoot to the side and say he doesn't come in there and make an effect. I mean, this is somebody who ran for over 1,000 yards in Buffalo pretty much every single year he was there. He is viable in the passing game. We know Dameon Pierce wasn't overly active in the passing game.
Right.
As a whole for this offense, and the way I look at it is I'm just looking for value here because outside of a super flex, obviously CJ Stroud's my hold. The only hold I see on here for me is CJ Stroud. I do like Nico Collins, but he's not a sell from any standpoint because if he shows anything, you're going to keep him.
Right.
But I'm really monitoring this running back situation, and I'm just trying to offload any one of these running backs at any point that they hold value. We'll start seeing, we don't know how the running back market's going to pan out. All these guys get hurt all the time. We have some hold-ins right now in Indianapolis, in Baltimore. We don't know how this running back situation is going to pan out as a whole.
Right.
Dalvin Cook hasn't signed yet.
Right.
Ezekiel Elliott hasn't signed yet.
There's some dominoes that need to kind of fall here.
Not officially Kareem Hunt. We'll see.
Right.
But
all signs are pointing
it's
he was going there.
yep.
The Browns are already thin at running back now with Jerome Ford hurting his hamstring, now questionable for week 1. Is that a place that makes sense for Ezekiel Elliott, where this goes? So we always know there is a hole, this vacuum for running backs in need in fantasy football and in dynasty fantasy football as a whole. So it will put you, Pierce was somebody who's probably real hard to sell this offseason, right? Because what we're saying, I'm sure a lot of dynasty players had the same exact feeling.
Right.
But, when push comes to shove in season and you need that running back and you're a contender, you're going to be in position when they're run this football and they're running it a lot. And Dameon Pierce is still out there and he's averaging 19 touches per game and on pace for over 1,000 yards. There's going to be a first round window in there for him.
And to your point with the fact that there's always a vacuum and a need for these running backs, there's not going to be more running backs through the season. There's just going to be less, you know what I mean? Less and less and less. So the value of these guys, the healthy guys, will go up. I did want to fact check you on the Devin Singletary stuff. He had 1,000 yards total, all purpose combined, rushing and receiving. So I just wanted to make sure that note was out there before somebody.
I apologize. Yeah, 1,000 all purpose yards, not just rushing yards. Yeah. And the biggest hole for this entire team will be just touchdowns, right? It hurt Dameon Pierce last year. let's face the facts. It's going to hurt them all again this year as well.
Well, and I think I think you're right. They are going to run the ball a lot, but they're probably going to be losing quite a bit. So towards the end of the game, we're going to get to see some garbage time, stuff, and maybe some of those big play receivers, maybe Nico Collins, Tank Dell, even. Maybe we start to see some
garbage time production kind of come through, and maybe some touchdowns here and there, but you would think that would be more pass heavy as far as receiving touchdowns instead of the rushing touchdowns. To your point, it is going to be tough to, I think, depend on either one of these running backs to score a ton of touchdowns this year.
Are either of you interested at all in trading for Nico Collins, John Mechie, or Tank Dell at all?
I think John Mechie on the unknown. Nico Collins, I've seen enough, and there's good reports coming out. I've never been like a huge Nico Collins guy. I liked him. I don't love him. I think you can get a Nico Collins. You know what I mean? So I'm not anxious to go out and get one.
I'm always a little bit leery of drafting players that are holdovers from old regimes. Just because even if the talent's there, sometimes it works out beautifully and they all mesh but a lot of times these new, GMs, new head coaches, new offensive coordinators, like they want their guys. And so that always worries me a little bit is like, are they going to get as much of a shot as if it was somebody that they drafted or somebody they signed? So that's always something that worries me, about Pierce, about Nico, about, even Mechie.
Yeah.
Like maybe they become their guys, but we don't know.
It's almost like an uphill battle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they don't have a reason they don't have any ties to them.
Correct.
Per se, or any reason to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Which is really what it boils down to.
Maybe the Texans find themselves in position to get Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, they would be in a great
with
spot
Stroud.
if they didn't trade their first round pick next year.
Oh, they did trade their first
They
round pick.
traded
The Arizona Cardinals. I forgot about that.
Yep.
For some
Because I was
reason,
thinking that too. Marvin Harrison, CJ Stroud connection.
I was literally thinking the other way around about the Cardinal, and you're right, 100% about that. And
which is a bummer. Like, and I get it. Will Anderson's going to anchor their defense, but man, I don't like giving away first round picks, especially your own when you're a bad team. Like,
it'd be interesting.
We'll see. Hopefully, it works out.
And it will be interesting to see how. I know a lot of people are saying that the Cardinals then will have back-to-back first-round picks, 1 and 2 overall, and they'll take, Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr.,
gosh.
Which would be insane. And I love to see that all works out.
That's like drool-inducing stuff right there.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, even to further cement Caleb Williams as a first-round startup pedigree. So, the Houston Texans, not a lot to be excited about there as a whole in Dynasty. For me, I'm looking at this whole team as outside of CJ Stroud in Superflex. Just window opportunities to sell, right? If Nico Collins comes in there and flashes a little bit and there's some value there to get returned, I'm selling. If Robert Woods comes in and he shows he could be a solid low-end wide receiver too for this team, because you mentioned it, they're trailing consistently.
Right.
I'd love to chase a second-round pick for him in 2024. Even John Mechie, I know for me, I was the lowest on John Mechie's tape. His draft profile came out. A lot of analysts said he was really good with the ball in his hands. And I literally felt the complete opposite. I did not think it was great with the ball in his hands.
I think we were on the same boat. I wasn't a Mechie guy. I know.
I was iron him.
Well, and we'll see. We've literally seen nothing, so he could be great.
Yep.
I thought he was just fast, but I didn't think he was very electric with the ball in his hands. And, an upside player that you're looking for really is going to be Xavier Hutchinson. He's going to be the big receiver on that
6'4",
that come out there and actually
He's
make
the
some plays.
sleeper guy that I'm keeping an eye on. I gave him a higher score than his draft pedigree would dictate on the nerd score.
4th round?
I believe he was a 5th.
Yeah, he was a little bit
I
later.
believe he was a 5th, and he
I have
was
a lot
guy,
of shares.
And he was a guy that I thought was more deserving of, early 4th, maybe even late 3rd. So he was definitely one of those ones where I was disappointed to see what the draft stock was. But I'm definitely keeping an eye on it, especially on a team where there's nothing established really right now with this new regime.
It's wide open. I think the only thing that's locked in is Robert Woods and Dalton Schultz. Yep. So let's go just jump on to the Indianapolis Colts here. At quarterback, Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew, Sam Ellinger. At running back, Jonathan Taylor, Evan Hall, Zach Moss. All reports today. It looks like Kareem Hunt's going to sign there tomorrow. He literally went to New Orleans, signs were that he was going to sign there. He got a phone call, said the Colts are going to offer you more money come to the Colts. So he went there to go work out, and he didn't even work out. So he went there. It's just marked
He didn't even work out because I thought they said he looked good.
No, he was marked as a visit, and Anthony Barr was marked as a workout. So he didn't even work out.
Interesting.
So he got the phone call. So literally the Colts got wind that he was going to sign with the Saints. They got word to his agent, hey, don't like, we will offer you this X amount of dollars. And it had to be pretty significant because he didn't even work out for the Saints. At receiver, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Isaiah McKenzie, Josh Downs, Ashton Doolin, Rashad Perriman. At tight end, Jelani Woods, Mo Ellie Cox, and Kylan Granson, Outside of the Texans, this is a very exciting upside dynasty fantasy football team. There is multiple pieces here that I would like to have on my dynasty rosters. Anthony Richardson, we've kind of beat that horse repeatedly here about the upside that he offers from a fantasy football standpoint. Has had an up and down camp, but some really good moments there of him throwing the football, which is exactly what we saw on tape. The running back situation. So let's talk about Jonathan Taylor here for a minute. Let's dive in here. What are your guys' thoughts on Jonathan Taylor and how this plans out? Because to me, it looks grim. Because I think the owner is stubborn enough and moody enough to just say, sorry, JT.
He's an owner that he's a wild card, right? I mean, we don't know what he's willing to do. So I don't think anything's out of the realm of possibilities. It's not like, you look at his contract, he's in the last year of his deal. He counts $5 million against the cap with only $800,000 worth of dead money.
Right.
So they can move on from this guy and gain financially, you know what I mean, in a trade or anything like that. So there's no reason for them to not pull the trigger if it's something that he wants to do. There's nothing stopping, from a financial standpoint anyway. So it seems to be getting ugly, right? I mean, they're going back and forth and media, social media, all that kind of stuff. JT's going home and he's training on his own now to, rehab his ankle, quote unquote. So yeah, this is a weird one. I mean, it kind of popped up out of nowhere, and it's not like, this is the last year of his deal. This is when he's got the highest base salary that he's had. He went from having $600,000 to $900,000 to $1.3 million. This year it's $4.3 million base salary. So this is like the year where dude's getting paid.
Actually making money.
Yeah, other than the upfront stuff that he got in year one for a signing bonus. This is like the next big kind of swing that he's getting here in this first contract, which to me just it seems odd. I know he wants to get paid, and that's
You get paid if you don't play.
Exactly. You can't. The circumstances aren't working out for you, man. You got injured at the end of last year. Get your butt into camp. Prove that you're right, and then they'll pay you. That's unfortunately the situation that all running backs kind of find themselves in at some point.
All reports, as much as I love Jonathan Taylor, I've been a big fan of his for a long time. All reports are that nobody's looking to trade for him, not because they don't think he's a talented player. I think most people admit he's one of the more talented running backs in the NFL, but from a cost standpoint and the 1 year rental standpoint, and why would they at this point? Why would they give up anything significant
to pay a running back $5 million, and then if he performs, have to then either franchise him, and which is I think around 10 million, 11 million bucks probably by next year, or sign him to a long-term deal for around 12, 13. That's probably what he's looking for.
So it's a really, really tough spot that he's found himself in. Dobbins has found himself in. Josh Jacobs to a slightly different extent with the franchise thing, but we're just in a really weird spot for running backs right now, and it's changing the way that we are playing Dynasty because of it, because these are guys that we are counting on.
Guys that were counted on last year are holding out, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And we've talked about it. There's already a vacuum. We already need these guys more than we have them, and have a couple of high-profile guys kind of sitting out.
And Kareem Hunt goes to this offense. He fits that offense really well with his skill set.
Did you say it again?
No, I did.
Yes, he
Kareem
did.
Hunt goes to this offense, and he has a really good skill set and pass catching ability. Jonathan Taylor's holding out.
This is my favorite. I hope Kareem Hunt never retires. Just so I can hear Rich.
Coming off, Jonathan Taylor's coming off his worst year ever with 1,004 yards. And we can laugh about it all day long. I don't know what you guys are even talking about. And
just rewind that, everyone.
It's unfortunate for these running backs, but it is what it is. I understand where the running backs are coming from 100%. But this is how the CBA was negotiated. This is what the player union agreed upon. And the GMs are going to try and put together Super Bowl teams the best way they can. And just like Dynasty players, we realize, hey, draft them as rookies, sell them on their second contract. That's how you do it. That's how you win in Dynasty, right?
Yep.
Like you sell these guys at their peak.
That's how you work the cap, too. I mean, you have to.
It's unfortunate. Next CBA, they got to work it out. But this is what it is. And we learned everything from Le'Veon Bell as well. Like, you holding out doesn't do anything to benefit you, because all that does is hurt your money because most people are going to pay the following year because you got to put the production out there to even get paid. Odds are, even if you can put the production out there, you're still not going to get paid. You would probably almost be hoped to get franchised, so you get $11 million per year, which that will go up every single year as well as the salary cap increases here. Jonathan Taylor, bad offensive line last year, bad offense. Most likely going to see stacked boxes again this year. Coming off a year where we only had 1,004 yards. They're going to bring in Kareem Hunt.
Well, when you say he only had 1,004 yards, he was dealing with
11
injuries
games
too.
Oh yeah, I get it. And he only played 11 yards, but 11 games, but still, that's still the facts. It doesn't.
Sure,
I understand.
I just don't want
that.
to make it sound like he was garbage last. Like he was still good.
Stud.
It was just injury. So
100% stud. But like all he's doing really is, for the most part, and again, he can show up to camp 2 weeks from now for the third preseason game, and this is all hunky dory.
Sure,
but we just don't know. And I would guess him, Josh Jacobs, J.K. Dobbins. Nobody's holding out for the year. Josh Jacobs is not passing up like Le'Veon Bell did $11 million. Jonathan Taylor's not going to pass up $4 million.
They just don't have a real leg to stand on.
That's the hard part.
They're kind of flexing the only muscles they can right now. I mean, obviously, Jonathan Taylor, I'm injured. I'm going to go train on my own and get my ankle right. I mean, like, that's it. That's the only leverage he has. He doesn't have any real leverage. And when push comes to shove, I mean, if they want to pass him on a physical, take him off the pup. If he doesn't show up, the fines are stacking up, and they're not cheap. You know what I mean? So it's I think the team could probably, if they wanted to make it ugly, they could probably do that kind of thing. So I mean, we'll see. It's a hard situation for them to navigate, and unfortunately, it falls on everyone here to kind of figure out how the heck we're going to deal with it. I mean, or to try to predict the best we can what's going to happen.
He's got a first-year head coach in Shane Steichen that likes to run the football. He likes to have his quarterback run the football. He likes to run the football. This is a good offense for him as well. So it'd be smart for him to get in there. What do you guys think about the receivers?
Real quick, before we get to the receivers, are you willing to buy any sort of dip on Jonathan Taylor or Dobbins and Jacobs for that matter too? Are you willing to buy any sort of dip on these guys, or is this scaring you enough that you don't want to do it?
I don't think there is a dip.
If there was a dip, if somebody was scared off, I'd be willing to, because I don't think they have much of a choice. They're going to have to report at some point.
But what we could end up seeing is they report, but they report late enough that they miss a game or two, and that and then how healthy are they? Do they pull a hammy because they're not as in shape? And like there's all of these like potential lingering things that could happen with it.
What are you giving up for a running back that's about to enter a second contract? 1 first. I mean, what are you selling Jonathan Taylor for? You want 2 firsts for Jonathan Taylor.
You want 2, but if you're a championship type of contender and you can get him for cheaper because somebody's worried that the wheels are about to fall off this guy, that's the kind of opportunity. Right. And what I think you're probably talking
exactly.
about.
Could I maybe I do give 2 firsts, but I get Jonathan Taylor in a second back. All right, I might be willing to do that.
Right.
That kind of deal, because especially I'm expecting my pick to be late. So
and without this nonsense, there's no way that would happen.
No. So that's all I'm saying here is like, if someone's a little bit panicked, or you give them a running back that maybe doesn't have the longevity, but you're excited, like Joe Mixon. Can you give Joe Mixon in a little bit more just so they feel good?
Would you
give
Joe Mixon in a first?
Probably a little bit too much for me.
That might be a little rich for me, but it's close.
I have a hard time.
But like, how is that
investing in that?
How is that really helping a championship? You're talking about just on a regular team, maybe not a championship contender. Because how is that really helping you from a championship? Yeah, it might
to give on that one it wouldn't, but a player that they feel good about. Yeah, maybe that wasn't the best example, but you understand what I'm saying.
It's gonna be draft capital, or you're giving up like a receiver because you're like, okay, I finally get it. I've been trying to get a young running back. I'm trying to give up depth at receiver here.
Sure.
But it's like the opposite thing I really want to do is buy these running backs that are going to second contracts. Definitely there's so much unknown to them. Like Saquon, somebody I felt pretty confident was going to get re-signed in New York. He ended up not getting re-signed. I still do have I think them giving that $11 million, giving that little bit of bonus, I think it does open the negotiations for next year, because they could franchise him again, which I would if I was them, and then then you sign him to a long-term deal.
Yeah, that's so
see him
weird
removed there. So
went for that.
No, it's odd. Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense that he.
It seems like he really shot himself in the foot there.
So these receivers: Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce. The one that I'm really, really like most excited about is Alec Pierce. I think he fits Anthony Richardson pretty well with
He
that
does.
big, strong arm. Alec Pierce is a really good go receiver,
Sure.
big,
He can get
fast.
downfield.
He can get downfield really well. I think that really bodes well for Richardson in offense. I think will be, like I said, a roller coaster, a rough offensive line, but Richardson on the move, he has the arm for it. But Michael Pittman, Jr. is somebody that we have touted as a great up-and-coming wide receiver one in Dynasty Fantasy Football. He has failed to get to that point so far in his career. Even last year, coming out, and the offense wasn't really great, coming in as wide receiver 23, was wide receiver 21 before that. So
It feels a little bit like as much as it pains me because I like both of these guys, it reminds me a little bit of like the Terry McLaurin career arc where it's like really good player, probably more talented than the results would show, but just has never been given any help.
Yeah. And he's a big guy and maybe I don't want to say he's a half a step slow, but maybe he's a half a step slow. He's a big possession type of guy.
Sure,
That's where he almost falls.
he's Mike
in,
Evans,
which
has been a fantasy dart, but
Yeah.
Mike Evans has been a wide receiver one consistently.
and Mike Evans, I think, is a slightly more dominant my ball type of guy. You know what I mean? Just slightly, but that slightly is
What
the
helped-
difference sometimes.
And what helped him was he had a quarterback that in Jameis Winston that would just sling it.
Sure.
Like, I don't care if you're covered or not. I'm just slinging it to you, which is great for receivers and the GOAT, so he got a lot more help than poor Michael Pittman Jr. has gotten.
We have to see how much they're going to throw the football. I mean, the Colts haven't been bashful at throwing the football, 600 times, 520. The Eagles threw it for right around 530 something last year as well. And the question will be, we have a guy who's a wide receiver two low end there. And now we're bringing a rookie quarterback that will probably, again, have some ups and downs here. Will Richardson be able to propel Michael Pittman Jr. into a higher fantasy football stratosphere, or will Michael Pittman finish almost where he has the last 2 years between wide receiver 21 and 23, or potentially lower? Because if I had to guess, and I would think it would be closer to that wide receiver 3 mold this year, which kind of decreases. So when you're looking at Michael Pittman, I won't say anything this year about him being a wide receiver 3, whether it be high end or low end wide receiver 2, because of Anthony Richardson. You mentioned, would you buy a dip on Jonathan Taylor? Is this a window to buy Michael Pittman for, like, potentially? I don't think it would get done for a first round pick. Is this a window where you go out and to attempt, maybe not now, like this week, but mid-season, where Pittman might start off struggling, hopefully doesn't? Are you buying Michael Pittman Jr. in Dynasty Fantasy Football?
This is a tough one for me. So I have him, and I was silly and I went and started setting my lineup for week 1 because football happened.
Sure.
So I went in there and I started setting them, and we in our league, the league that I have him in, it's a 3 wide receiver and then there's a flex, just a normal flex. So I filled out my first 3 guys, and it was Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and AJ Brown. It was really eeasy. 1, 2, 3.
That's pretty easy. Yeah.
And then my next 2 guys,
Top 5 guys.
My next 2 guys are Brandon Ayuk and Pittman, and I was like,
That's tough.
which one am I going to start here as my kind of flex guy? And I ended on Brandon Ayuk, and it has everything to do with the offense, the stability in the offense, and just the upside. And so to answer your question, I think he'll rebound and get back, but I personally don't have a great feeling for him this year. I do feel like he's going to be probably down in that wide receiver 3 range, and for a championship quality team, that's going to be hard to swallow most weeks. You know what I mean? So you're going to want a guy that's got more output, even in your flex position. You want something that probably has a little bit higher upside than him.
PPR running back gives you more production than wide receiver 3.
Right.
And I'm with you. I do worry about this specific season. However, he's 25. He'll be turning 26 mid-season. So he's still fairly young. That's the difference between him and Terry McLaurin, as Terry McLaurin was like an older guy in his class.
Right.
He's still fairly young. So this feels like a guy that I'm going to let it go into the season. I'm not going to try to acquire him now because there's still people excited about this team. But I think we're not going to see them really unleash Anthony Richardson early on in the season. Correct. It's going to mean lower passing production, which is going to lower his value. But I think towards the end of the year and then into next year, I do think we could start to see Anthony Richardson make a jump. And if Anthony Richardson does make a jump in his passing ability, the main beneficiary of that's going to be Michael Pittman Jr. So I think he's a guy that right now I'm just kind of letting things chill. But mid-season, if I'm not a contender, if I'm a middle of the road, if I'm a rebuild, he's a target for me that I'm trying to acquire.
Any thought in your guys' head about this being his last year of his deal?
I think they re-sign him.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm actually buying Michael Pittman Jr. here at midseason as well, because I actually think the way this plays out is exactly how you said it does. I'm not as confident as the late season surge there
more
as
so
you
next
are,
year.
but I'm real confident in when this offseason, when he signs a 4-year, $20 million a year deal, that his price will significantly go up. Doesn't matter. The money, the guaranteed money will make his dynasty value go up. So even if I'm not 100% in on Pittman, I still really like the player a lot. I think whatever you put into him will be a good investment, because that will increase after the season. Yeah,
because the contract will be through age 30, 31 years old, and that's huge.
He's going to get $20 million a year. I mean, you have a quarterback on a rookie contract. You need a number one receiver.
Especially if they're not paying a running back.
Nobody's going to be available outside of like T. Higgins. We don't even know if that's going to come to fruition even as well. So this would be a really good, the odds of him, I would say the odds of him getting locked up the season for about $20 million a year is at about 90%.
I feel pretty good about it too.
I think it's a good investment. I still like the long-term player, and I do actually like Anthony Richardson's arm, and I think he's more accurate than people give him the credit for.
And he's with Steichen, who, I mean, he literally just did this with Jalen Hurts. If there's a guy that can do it, it's him.
So buy Michael Pittman Jr. probably right around week 5, right around there.
Trade deadline, yeah.
I think there's a chance you get, and if you're in complete rebuild, you're not giving up your first, but I would have no problem giving up, if I'm middle of the road to late, my first immediately for Michael Pittman Jr. midseason, and that'd probably be enough to get it done, because whoever has Michael Pittman will likely be struggling unless he's their wide receiver 3 or wide receiver
and if
4.
you're in rebuild, you probably have somebody else's first that's later on, because they made a deal with you earlier in the year. So trade that first, trade that late first that you have from somebody else.
Or your 25 first, if you're like, hey, I'm going to get Marvin Harrison Jr., I'll pair out Michael Pittman, I'll be middle of the road next year, I'll give a middle 25 first.
Bam, here I am.
All right, before we move on to the Jaguars.
Yeah, why don't I tell you guys a little bit about our friends over at FFPC. It is the best place if you are looking for that high stakes dynasty league, but they're not just dynasty. They also have amazing redraft leagues. The FFPC main event, home to a $1 million grand prize and over $5.9 million dollars in total prizes. And then the Fantasy Pros Championship, another $1 million there, $6 million in total prizes. So lots of money to be made. You can do the dynasty stuff. You can do the redraft stuff. But either way you do it, use the promo code NERDS at myffpc.com. That's promo code NERDS at myffpc.com. That will get you $25 off your entry if you are a new member. So head on over there. Redraft, dynasty, orphan, doesn't matter. You're going to have a great time, and you know that league won't fold.
Jacksonville Jaguars at quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, CJ Beathard. At running back, Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, Ernest Johnson, and JaMychal Hasty. Wide receiver, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Kevin Austin, Jamal Agnew, Tim Jones. At tight end, Evan Ingram, Luke Farrell, and Brenton Strange. This is a team on the rise, a team that made the NFL playoffs last year.
Big time.
Actually won an NFL playoff game as well. A lot of exciting pieces here. We look for a lot of people to take step forwards, or do we? Because this is a team where Trevor Lawrence came in last year, and it provided everyone a career year. Evan Ingram, career year in catches and in yards. Christian Kirk, career year in catches and yards. Zay Jones, career catches in yards and receptions. Trevor Lawrence, much better the second half of the year than he was the first half of the year. And by all means, a dynasty darling in Superflex leagues.
Absolutely.
But, there's a lot to be excited about here. But there is only so many balls to go around here. Let's start at the running back position here. Travis Etienne coming off last year. Once they got rid of James Robinson, Etienne's touches went up pretty significantly there. He was averaging about 18 touches per game. But there was reports that the team was some concern about making sure he's like the 3-down running back here. So they bring in Dearness Johnson. They draft Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby has decent hands. Dearness Johnson has decent hands. And Travis Etienne only caught about 2 balls per game last year. So
It's 35 of 45 or something like that as far as targets.
yeah, he's not a big receiving running back there. So Dearness Johnson, we saw here in Cleveland, a very efficient running back when it comes to breaking tackles, yards after contact. He's ranked pretty high when it comes to those kinds of stats. Tank Bigsby, a big bruising running back who actually can catch the ball pretty well for his size.
Yep.
So
they made note. The coaches come out and actually said that he's noted the fact that he's catching balls better than he thought.
he showed that on tape as well.
Yep, he did. Absolutely.
So Etienne last year, 255 touches, 1,441 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Do you guys view Travis Etienne as a sell high in Dynasty Fantasy Football, or do you think the best is yet to come?
I'm a sell high on Travis Etienne type of guy. I mean, I think they brought this competition in for a reason, and he's going to be a guy that it's going to be hard for him to get that kind of workload that he had last year to get the numbers that he had. So I think there's going to be a drop off as far as his efficiency and as far as his just weekly output. So I would think, yeah, this is a perfect time to sell before the proof is in the pudding and people see that on the field.
He was actually, I think he was my sell high in the running back episodes that we did this summer. Talked about one of my biggest concerns was the inconsistency that he would play with. He would have weeks where, he'd be a top 5 running back, and then you would have weeks where, he's putting out 3 points and 4 points a game. And it was just absolutely maddening to try to figure out what weeks were going to be his, what weeks weren't, especially with the additions of these guys. And we know Peterson in the past has used running back by committee more so than most coaches before it was even cool. So it is something that I'm genuinely concerned about. I think he's a good player, and he is a home run waiting to happen at any point. That was always one of his best attributes, was his acceleration when he can hit the hole and when he can identify the hole and then hit it. That's always a thing that I wonder about, is his vision. But when he can identify the hole, hit the hole, he can score at any point. He's got that 0 to 60. But I just don't know how consistently he's going to be able to do that. So he's one of those kind of guys where I like him a little bit better in best ball than I do in real fantasy football.
I mean, when you don't have to actually rely on him in a starting lineup, it's just if he goes off, the numbers are there. That's the perfect sort of format for him, because I mean, to your point, week 6 12 points, week 7 18 25 26 10.3 7.6 3.2 12 14 23. That is week 6 on for last year. It's hard. It's very hard to rely on that type of stuff, and it's a yo-yo. And as much as he's winning you those games when he's scoring you 26 points, 25 points, he's losing you those games
when it's 2, 3, 4 points.
When it's under a point. Like, give me a break, man. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, Dynasty is a game of windows and finding those windows of buys and sells. And I think Travis Etienne's in a really good sell window right now as well. And not that he's a bad player whatsoever.
Right.
He finished as running back 16 last year, and that's pretty successful. And I can see him finishing somewhere around there again this year.
Sure.
Which is, a high-end running back too, which is extremely valuable. That's an asset. But those could be had by PPR running backs, right? Mm-hmm. Those guys fill that mold perfectly. So I think a lot of people view Travis Etienne as a running back 1, and I think we have 2 really good things here to make him a big sell. One is that running back 1 appearance or mirage, which doesn't have to be a mirage, because he could finish as running back 1. It wouldn't be outside of that realm with how open this offense should be with the weapons they have to throw to. And Trevor Lawrence taking another year into his 3rd year now, which is always a huge step for an NFL quarterback. In his youth, people are so attracted to the youth at running back. He is in the 3rd year of his contract. He was a first-round pick. So they will pick up. They had a 5th-year option there, so you have a couple more years of Travis Etienne. But this falls in the category of you mentioned a player earlier. Like, can I get Joe Mixon and a first for Travis Etienne? Yeah. That's where it falls in that category for me. Can I get Jonathan Taylor for Travis Etienne? Is that a trade that would interest me a little bit?
Yeah, if that's somebody, if somebody's like, I need a good running back that I feel safer about. I would gladly take Jonathan
Yeah,
Taylor.
and that's a
That's a good
there.
one. Yep, that's a good one.
So ETN's not a sell for like whatever you can get, but I feel like you can get somebody like Mixon, who if I had to predict right now, I think Joe Mixon will outscore Travis Etienne in PPR leagues this year. Can I get a running back that will outperform him plus a first-round pick? Mm-hmm. Running backs should be fluid, and this is like, to me, I'm always looking for peak sell opportunities, and it not necessarily is his peak because he could outperform what he did last year, but I think this is a good sell window for Travis Etienne. When we're looking at the receiving core here, it's
a tough one.
You won't hear about this receiving core much, but this is a really solid receiving core because Zay Jones now is the third receiver, and I thought he showed us last year he could definitely be a solid number 2 in this league.
Yep.
Making plays in the preseason. Christian Kirk, who I thought would come out and not be as great as he was, and he's a wide receiver 1 last year, right? Wide receiver like 12 or around there.
I'll check
number 11.
Yep.
So, and then they bring in Calvin Ridley.
That's a big one.
That, to me, is so detrimental to Christian Kirk and Zay Jones because Calvin Ridley is on another level than Christian Kirk and Zay Jones. Just on another level.
Absolutely. Well, and you bring in the point that they bring in Evan Ingram. They bring him back as well, which is a lot of targets that don't normally go to the tight end. So you put those two things together, that's not great news for Zay Jones and Christian Kirk.
I don't think it's great news for Evan Ingram.
Maybe, but I think all three of those guys cannibalize each other.
They're fighting for not that they're fighting for the scraps, but
right. It's Calvin Ridley, and then those three guys all cannibalizing each other, and I think all three of them are going to be tough to use.
I don't think Calvin Ridley will be tough to use.
No. I'm saying Calvin Ridley's above.
Oh yeah,
Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and then Evan Ingram are all going to be tough to use because the three of them are going to cannibalize each other.
You're 100% right because I think Calvin Ridley's too explosive, too good of a route runner, too good of hands to not easily be Trevor Lawrence's number 1 look here. Mm-hmm. And Christian Kirk, you move him to slot, keep Zay Jones on the outside. Yep. And I mean, I think there's a world here where Zay Jones could outproduce Christian Kirk in fantasy football this year, which is also nuts, which makes Christian Kirk a sell. But I think a lot of the Dynasty community probably undersees it and here's exactly what we're talking about, which sometimes it makes people almost an impossible sell here.
Yep.
You mentioned Evan Ingram.
It makes it an impossible sell. You almost have to wait for an injury or something like that on that team, you know what I mean, and hope that he emerges. Somebody tweaks a hamstring and there's a 5-week stretch or something like that where it's him as the top dog.
And you're also assuming that next year they don't draft another receiver. This is a team that could easily draft another legitimate pass catcher for this offense next year. So there's just a lot of things that make me not very interested in Christian Kirk.
And as far as that, I mean, this is the last year of Ridley's deal, right? He's on the 1-year deal. It's like $11 million, no dead money. So they could be moving on from him. Christian Kirk's deal right now, if you're taking a look at that, he's on this weird. It ends in 25. He's got a couple of dead years, so they're probably tied to him because he has a couple of phony years on the end of that thing as well. So Kirk's probably likely there, but I think Zay Jones has also got something goofy like that. Yeah, so his contract ends in 24, but he's got like 3 dead years at the end of that thing. So they're starting to get some funky contracts there in Jacksonville that probably tie them to at least those two guys.
That happened in Philly. They're just taking it with them to Jacksonville.
I don't know why they do this stuff, but I mean, I guess it's accounting.
They're making it work.
Reasons they just kick the can down the road, and even after Kirk's done, he's going to count $5 million 1 year, almost $6 million, and then almost $3 million the second year after he's gone.
I think Ridley gets extended.
I think
like short term, like a short term. Like they offer him a 4-year deal. 2 years guaranteed, so it gets the 2 years up front, and that's
4 phony years on the back.
4 phony years in the back. I think we're talking about sells on this team. I think another big time sell for me is Evan Ingram on this team. Finished last year as tight end 5 overall. So if you play a tight end premium league or who does not need a tight end this year, Evan Ingram had a real strong back end of the year. Hit at one monster game in week 14. They had 39.2 points that really propelled him up the rankings, but. In right around there, 14 points, 18 points. But outside of that stretch, that 4-game stretch where he scored 14, 39.2, 14.2, and 18.3, almost every game that he had outside of a week 8 was like 12 points or less. And and then if you go under farther than that, about 10 of those games was under 10 points per game. So he was really hit and miss, kind of a roller coaster at tight end, but ended up propelling him late in the year and getting him up there with his points. A lot of people need tight ends, definitely tight end premium. He just signed that extension with the Jaguars as well, so that's going to be in people's minds. I would love to be able to find a way to move him and get another value at tight end. Can I get Tyler Higbee plus a draft pick? Because I think Tyler Higbee's going to see a ton of targets this year and kind of finish pretty close to where he finished last year, is like number 6 overall. Is there an avenue where I can get one of these young tight ends this year? Because I think this is going to be one of the strongest draft classes we've ever seen at the tight end position.
There's a lot of guys. There's guys you're getting in the 3rd and 4th round that I feel pretty good about.
Yeah, one of the guys on this team in South that was a second, was he a 2nd or 3rd round pick? And Brenton Strange.
Second
round pick.
Yeah, who's probably underutilized in college and actually is athletic enough and big enough to actually go out there and produce in this offense. And we know they've run tight end. Peterson's run 2 tight end sets before down the road. So for me, can I go get Luke Musgrave? Is there any avenue that Evan Ingram, probably not, but opens the door to get Sam Laporta?
Sure.
But those are.
You never know.
Those are guys that we loved, coming in
for a contending team.
Yeah, if Laporta starts slow and Ingram's off to a hot start, that's a move that can be made.
Yeah. I would love to be able to get like Luke.
Yeah.
You're not getting Dalton Kincaid. No. First of all, I already married him. Third of all,
he's not on the market.
Take it.
he's taken. But I think there's
call him Liam Neeson.
There's a path there for Sam Laporta and Luke Musgrave to possibly have with Evan Ingram. And in a tight end premium league, like I'm willing to throw on top for both those young guys. I believe in both of them.
You're willing to jump on top too.
Yeah, whatever we gotta do. Yeah, husband material. So
Kareem Hunt.
Brenton Strange might be somebody that's out there. He's gonna be a long-term play. He's probably a 3-year play. He'll probably after Evan Ingram's guaranteed money is coming off the books. He'll be out there.
I'm sorry, who are you talking about?
Brenton Strange.
Strange. All right. Sorry, you got me with Kareem Hunt.
Creamy Hunt. Who's your outside of Trevor Lawrence? Who is your favorite dynasty asset on this roster?
Ridley.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, he's a shorter term.
Just because
he's 28, almost. Yeah, he'll be 29 this year.
Well rested, my friend.
Well, we haven't really talked too much about Trevor Lawrence, and for good reason. He's amazing. We all know that. But how far away is he from Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and like those guys? Like if you had Pat Mahomes, let's say, and they offered you Trevor Lawrence and a mid-first next year.
For Pat Mahomes?
You have Mahomes. Would you take Lawrence in a mid-first?
I think Pat Mahomes is the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, and I wouldn't trade him for anything. Literally, I would not trade him for anything.
Okay.
You'll get nothing and like it.
Wow.
You would have to offer me.
All right, Josh Allen. Same tier.
I would need Josh Allen and 2 firsts.
You would need Trevor Lawrence and 2 firsts.
Trevor and 2 firsts
to get Josh Allen
to get out.
I would still say no.
He's saying how much of the difference between Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen.
If I'm an NFL team or Dynasty?
Dynasty. We're playing football. Okay. Dynasty fantasy football.
Well, you said NFL team.
No.
Oh, never mind then. Okay, I thought you were talking about NFL team. There's no.
No.
Oh.
Dynasty fantasy football.
Oh.
What's the difference between the tier of
You said the
Mahomes and
owners.
Allen?
I was really confused there. I was like, because I wouldn't trade Pat Mahomes for anything in the world.
He's got too much creamy on his brain.
If I had Pat Mahomes in Dynasty and Superflex, and somebody offered me Trevor Lawrence and a first, in a mid first,
Yeah,
in
let's say mid first.
I would be. I would probably be pretty. I'd take that.
You would take that?
Yeah, in a Superflex league because I'm getting a pretty damn good player on top of that, and I think Trevor Lawrence. I'm getting younger, first of all, which is that's a reason.
Points per game difference last year in our league, which has some kind of different
funky rules,
but 9 points a game.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's a lot.
But I do think Trevor Lawrence is going to take a step forward this year.
All right.
I think people, the Jaguars up and coming. Doug Pearson's a great coach. The weapons that he has, he's just so set up with what he has around him not to win. And he looks so good the second half of the year last year.
It is Josh Allen, it is Mahomes, it is Jalen Hurts at 30, right around 30 points a game, all 3 of those guys. And
give me a second on top of him.
and then it's everyone else.
It was 8 in fantasy pro scoring.
Okay,
so
not that big of a difference.
Yeah,
if it's guaranteed to be a mid first,
almost
like
7 points,
right around pick 6,
7.3.
like I know I'm getting a really good player there. Like I could probably get a Mecca at wide receiver, and I think the difference is, and that's where I think you could. Not only will I think Trevor Lawrence will shorten the gap at that 9 points per game, I don't think he overtakes Mahomes, but I think the player that you get with that first would really
Make that pretty darn close.
That would offset it. Yeah, I could probably get a player that's going to average over those 9 points per game, and that's how I kind of look at trades like that. Like how am I overall better my team?
I think
do I have a hole there?
You have to look at that, but sometimes you also just have to stay that position. I'm losing 9 points. I got to make up
7.3.
7.3.
I think
9
Lawrence
points.
closes a gap this year on that.
All right.
I think
that's a lot of points to make up at one position.
what can you look at it? Can you look at it where I'll tell you right now. Let me bring it up right here. You guys talk for a second.
I would still go Pat Mahomes there. It's close for me.
So would I. And
it's very, very close.
I don't know if you could tell by the way
I kind of assumed.
But that is.
What about Josh Allen, though? I mean, it's very similar tier. Most people have them 1 and 2. Would Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow?
Joe Burrow's the other guy that's kind of nipping at their heels, right?
Right.
I mean, like he's the closest one.
I have the information I wanted.
Okay.
Lay
it on us.
Trevor Lawrence started the year off not amazing.
Not great.
The second half of the year, he looked tremendously better. Tremendously better. If you take week 9 through 18 in fantasy football, Trevor Lawrence versus Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes averaged 25.4 points. Trevor Lawrence averaged 19.3. So you're talking about right around a 5 to 6 point difference there. So we've already shortened the gap just on the second half of last year. And like I said, I expect Trevor Lawrence to get better this year and close that gap a little bit more. So maybe it'd be around 5 points per game.
In our just for reference, because we were talking about my league and it was like 9. I'm looking at my league, same parameters, 31 points to 24. So there's like a 7 point gap.
Okay, so close to about the same amount,
right?
Compared to.
So the point is, like, if I'm getting Trevor, like, when you're talking about Pat Mahomes, it's got to be a special deal, right? So, like,
absolutely.
And to me, Trevor Lawrence is that kind of a special deal where I'm getting a first on top. And I think if it's, and you said mid first, so it's not like we're talking a contender here. And the big thing here is Pat Mahomes is going to be 28 years old, right around there, 28 years old. Trevor Lawrence is still only 23 years old,
right?
So you're also gaining 5 years.
Mahomes will be 28 in September.
5 years as well. And now Mahomes is playing for another 10 years.
Decade
you know
plus,
what I mean?
Pretty easy.
But you're going to get another 15 years out of Lawrence. So for me, he's one of the few, like, I'm not making that deal for Justin Fields. I'm not making that. And the fact that Trevor Lawrence came in as a generational quarterback as well, and his tape looks so good there, it would take a Trevor Lawrence to get that kind of deal done.
Sure. I was just trying to figure out how close he is to that caliber, that tier of players.
So pretty close. I mean, if it just takes the
super
first, I'd like to move the needle on there, and that's where we'll be at. So you guys ready to get on to our last team here?
Let's
Titans.
do it. Yep.
All right, let's talk about the Tennessee Titans. Interesting team. Quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, Will Levis, and who's the other quarterback they have there? I didn't even write him down.
Malik Willis.
Oh, Malik Willis. Yeah.
Apparently second on the depth chart.
Yeah, the depth chart's this time of the year. Bijan Robinson, third in the depth chart. Tell me something else that makes me stupid. Running back, Derrick Henry, Tajay Spears.
We are all dumber for having listened to that.
Wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, Treylon Burks, Nick Westbrook, Akini, Kyle Phillips, and Chris Moore. At tight end, we got Chig Okonkwo, Trevin Wesco, and Josh Wiley. This receiving core immediately looks like a big upgrade here for the Tennessee Titans by adding DeAndre Hopkins. It's crazy
100%.
how much that has changed things. All reports out of camp are Treylon Burks has looked absolutely fantastic. Every day you hear about he's making a really big catch, looking fast, looking lean. So
I actually listened to an interview with him on the like Sirius XM at NFL Radio, and he was talking about how he literally. Rich's word. He was there every single day. He spent the entire offseason in Tennessee, but he was there meeting with the coach every single morning, 8:00. And he's like, it's not because I didn't know the plays. He's like, it's because we were talking all the little intricacies of the offense and the details and all the little stuff, which is huge.
Absolutely.
And for, all the questions I had about him last year, he seems to be answering all of them. Just with the work ethic and putting in the extra work in the offseason. So a guy that has a lot of upside that I had questions about his work ethic. He seems to be answering all of them. So this is great. And the fact that all the reports are positive, things are looking up, just completely up. I know that, right now there might be a little bit of a down swoop just because Hopkins is there. And if there is, this might be a great opportunity to go out and buy, because for all intents and purposes, he's going to be making this big kind of jump, I think, this year as far as his production.
Because Nuke, we're looking at best 2 years.
Oh, at best, yeah.
At best.
I mean, and another thing Treylon Burks was saying, he's like, I don't necessarily sit there and bug him all day long and ask him all, everything he does, but I've been watching how he prepares. Just little things like DeAndre Hopkins always has a tennis ball in his hand. He's got this little squeezy where he's always working on hand strength and stuff like that. He's picking up little things like that you don't necessarily see in every wide receiver room, but when you see a guy that, hey, he's got 10-inch hands, I've got 10-inch hands, he's got amazing hands. How do I get there? And it's these little things like carrying a tennis ball around and always bouncing off things and catching it and squeezing a ball all day long just to work on finger strength. Like those are little things that you don't pick up everywhere, or on your own, you might never pick that up. He might have gotten that from somebody else, DeAndre Hopkins. And now he's getting that kind of knowledge passed down to him, where that wasn't really a resource. He didn't have a guy last year that was a big brother type of guy to kind of, hey, welcome to the NFL. This is how you work. He didn't have any of that kind of stuff. So to have that kind of stuff is huge. And I'm expecting some pretty big production. And maybe not even, he might not have these huge numbers, but I expect
more consistency.
I expect to see a leap as far as what you see out of him week in and week out.
Potential Michael Pittman Jr. numbers, wide receiver 23, potentially higher there. I've been buying a lot of Treylon Burks this offseason. I've always been a fan from day one, but I've also been kind of using this opportunity to get some shares. I know recently, like in a tight end Superflex Premium League where I needed receiver help, I traded Mark Andrews. I got Dulcich and Treylon Burks back, which I was comfortable doing. I want to get younger on that team. So for me, this team is interesting because I think everybody views the Titans as kind of like, it's kind of an offense I'm somewhat wishy-washy about. But Ryan Tannehill has given us 2 quarterback 1 years. I don't really think we're going to see Will Levis this year. I know a lot of people are like, we'll see Will Levis late in the year. I don't think we will. I think Mike Vrabel is too good of a coach. I think they got too good of a defense. I think they'll be kind of in there. And the fact that they have so many other veterans on that team, like they're going to consistently have to be going for it.
And look at the division they're in. I mean, it is a 2-horse race. It
really is.
I mean, you can't count on the Colts. You can't count on the Texans as players in this division. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans, and they're going to be fighting for the top. So unless something goes seriously wrong for Tennessee early, they're going to be in this thing till the very end.
And I think that's the big thing. I really want to see what the first 6 or so weeks look like. If they're 1-5, 2-4, then I'm a little worried about Ryan Tannehill's job. That at that point they just say, but even a slow start at 3-3, 4-4, I think they're going to keep pushing it because this for their sake, this is kind of their last dance. This is their last chance to really get things going.
And looking at some of these contracts, Tannehill's in the last year of his deal. Derrick Henry's in the last year of his deal. Some of these
Nuke's is a 2-year deal, right?
I think Nuke is. He's got 20. This is another one with a bunch of funny money at the end.
Yeah.
It's a 2024 that goes to like 2027, a bunch of voidable years. So it is definitely, but they can get out of Hopkins after next year and save money against the cap. So
if they blow it up, that's exactly what they will do.
Exactly.
100%.
So we'll know, I think, within the first 6, 7, 8 weeks how that thing's kind of falling which way, but not before then. It's one of those things that this team is very bipolar. They could go either way. They've got enough veterans where they can make it work.
A good enough head coach.
And a good enough head coach. But if things start going south, hey, we got this 2nd-round pick. We need to take a look at this guy. Hey, we got this young wide receiver. Let's feature him a little bit more than Hopkins and stuff like that.
But the good defense, a real strong running game. They still got Derrick Henry, had almost a little over 1,500 yards last year. I think the big thing here too is Derrick Henry took a big step forward in his receiving game. 33 catches, 398 yards. So he had a total of 1,936 yards last year. That's the second most of his entire career.
Yeah.
So, you have a good running back there. I know they draft Tajay Spears. I know that's one of your favorite guys as well. I do expect Tajay Spears to be in play to be the starter running back for the Tennessee Titans in 2024. So a fantastic buy. I know in your eyes, you've been preaching and getting slack ever since we did our day after the NFL draft, mock draft. You took him in the first round, and people were like, "You're an idiot." And I was like, "Don't you talk about my friend like that."
That's right.
Sure.
No, I do. I still like Spears as much as ever. I still think you can get him way too cheap. And even from the perspective of if you're looking at running backs that have a chance to make a jump this year because of injury, suspension, all of the different things that could happen, there is nobody else in this running back room. It is Henry and it is Spears. The next best guy is Haskins, and he dealt with all kinds of off the field and it's bad human being stuff. There's nobody else in this running back room. So if something were to happen, like happened with Derrick Henry 2 years ago, he could be one of those type of guys that could be a league winner at the end of the year.
Oh, for sure. I think this team is full of contender buys, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're in Superflex, you need a quarterback. I think Ryan Tannehill is a pretty cheap option there to fill out your quarterback 2 option. If you need a wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins is absolutely a cheap option to get out there. I don't even know where his cost would be. I'm looking at the Trade Finder, use Dynasty Nerds Trade Finder to find out. But if you're talking about a receiver last year, you're talking about a Hall of Fame receiver that hasn't, when Julio Jones, people are like, well, is he like Julio Jones? Julio Jones slowly kind of kept fading away there.
Sure.
DeAndre Hopkins has just been dealing with some injuries. When DeAndre Hopkins came back from his injury last year, when he played from week 7 through 16, he was wide receiver number 7 overall. He's still a very efficient receiver.
Absolutely.
And now he's got one of the better number 2s outside of him. I know we have Marquise Brown there, but he's got a young Treylon Burks there. So I'm buying DeAndre Hopkins. Chig Okonkwo, I know he's a hot name in Dynasty, but I'm buying him as well. This is a tight end that came out last year, looked pretty damn good when he get an opportunity, and somebody who just even really have a lot of opportunity. When you look at Chig only played 37% of the offensive snaps last year, but still led tight ends in yards per route run. So this is a guy who was really efficient when he was given the opportunities. Puts Ryan Tannehill into a really good spot here. You got Derrick Henry, who's catching footballs out of the backfield. You get DeAndre Hopkins. You get Treylon Burks. You have Kyle Phillips there as well, who is a very solid slot receiver.
Absolutely.
Very shifty, has a chance to get open. And then you bring a big guy in like Chig. This is an offense that can't move. If I'm a contender, even outside contender, I'm buying Chig and Treylon Burks. I'm buying all 3 of those guys, and DeAndre Hopkins, Derrick Henry, and Ryan Tannehill to help me propel me to a Dynasty Fantasy Football Championship.
I pulled up the trade browser real fast just to get some DeAndre Hopkins numbers. Hopkins for a 26th, 2nd, and 3rd. So that's very affordable. That's pushing
kicking the can down the road. Yeah,
way down the road.
I would take a way worse receiver than Hopkins for that.
So that was in a Superflex league. Let me go jump over to.
I'd probably give that up for Zay Jones.
A lot of the other ones were too many players involved. But
those can be tough. Yeah.
Are you in Superflex or one PPR?
Right now, just PPR. Hopkins and AJ Dillon for first. So he's definitely under the first threshold if you're getting
easily,
him and AJ Dillon for a first round draft.
So let me ask you guys this: I said DeAndre Hopkins was wide receiver 7 overall from week 7 to 16. He is somebody who's very consistent. No longer getting all that separation, but you throw the ball to him, he's gonna come down with it. Right. He's got some of the best hands I've ever seen.
100%.
Over the last couple of years, Larry Fitzgerald and DeAndre Hopkins, to me, the most consistent hands that I've seen over probably the last 12 years with those 2 players. If you're a contender and you need a receiver, you have 2 good receivers, are you giving them a first for DeAndre Hopkins?
I can't.
No, that's hard for me.
As much as I want to, it is still a new team. It is a new situation, and he's hitting that what should be the age cliff now. He could be the exception. But if I'm giving up a first, I need to know without a doubt that I'm getting high numbers from it, and I just don't know without a doubt that I am.
Back-to-back injury years. I wouldn't either, mind you. So I'm saying that. But would you give up 2 seconds?
I might.
How about
as long as one of them are mine?
Alec Pierce in a second. That's something I just saw in the
that seems about right.
Finder.
That seems fair. You take the upside of Pierce, somebody who I do like the upside for in a second. If I was not a contender, I had Pierce. If I had Nuke, I'd give that up for him.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's a fair trade.
Which I think Pierce is worth right around a second as well.
I'm
so
sure
it's essentially 2 seconds. I think it's a good price tag. I think it'd be hard to get him for a second. Some leagues you obviously probably could.
Yep.
But I think in the Dynasty universe, it's probably 2 seconds it would probably take to get it done.
Hopkins for James Cook. So, I mean, that's kind of like,
James Cook all day.
right.
All day.
Sky Moore for Hopkins straight up. So that's
Sky Moore all day.
That's a contender versus rebuild move.
Right.
You know, I like Sky Moore a lot, but I think it makes sense if you're a contender and you need that fourth receiver or whatever.
And here's another one, Hopkins for a second and fourth, both in 24.
Okay.
So, I mean,
makes sense.
That's right around his range, I think.
Let's jump into our NFC South episode of the Nerd Herd. Remember, if you join Underdog, use the promo code NERDS, you get a free year membership to the Nerd Herd. It's not just this extra podcast we're going to do, but it's all the bonus tools we have as well. And you're supporting our partners and you're supporting us. We appreciate it. We'll be back next week talking AFC West.
West.
Go West, young man.
West is the best. Adios.